Good afternoon, folks. As you know, I don't often run on my own LinkedIn live sessions. However, I felt there was a need to run this particular session on the topic of why you are not an executive CTO, because so many people with a CTO job title feel offended when someone tells them that they're not a strategic or executive CTO. So I'm running this solo LinkedIn session, live session, to explain what actually makes a CTO an executive. And in this session, I'm going to cover two essential types of signs. I'm going to start before I go deeper into the signs of what makes one an executive CTO or not. I also want to share with you the link for my waiting list and interest list, whereby, and I'm going to put that in the comment, where you can sign up to hear from me when I have interesting events coming up, or webinars, or updates, or maybe latest reports, or articles that I've written that have exclusive that you have access exclusively as the first person who's on as the people first as the people on my waiting list. So I'm going to put the interest list link in the comments so you can access this if you want to sign up there. I promise you, I will not bombard you with emails. I absolutely hate it when people do that to me. So I'm not. That's not kind of the game I'm in. And obviously, you can very easily unsubscribe. But I would only message you a handful of times a month, if that. Always with something that's relevant, rather than rubbish articles you'd have seen somewhere else anyway. So let's talk about the signs of how do you know if you're an executive CTO? And by the way, feel free to ask questions as I'm talking. I will check the comments and happily see if the see the questions and answer them as much as I can. I might also send you the link and invite you in the studio with me, so we can have a chat to expand on your question as well. But let's start with a quite a simple breakdown of the external signs that indicate that you are an executive CTO. And if you don't have any of these, then you're probably not an executive CTO. I hate to break it to you. The most obvious sign that you are an executive CTO is that you have some form of profit and loss responsibility. If you have no control over budgets, you have no influence over key budgets in the company, you are likely not an executive CTO. If also the decisions you make, you have no idea what impact those have on the profit and loss, again, you're very unlikely to be an executive CTO. An executive CTO is essentially a business person who who has influence, control, negotiation power with the rest of the C-suite over the future of the company. That's what an executive CTO is. An executive CTO is not a CTO that is very deep into the technology, produces code all the way to deployment. That's not what an executive CTO does. In fact, if an executive CTO does that, they are, I hate to say it, a glorified engineer or even architect potentially, but not an executive CTO. So that's the first sign, P&L responsibility. The second sign, you directly report to the CEO. If you report, for example, if, for example, your company had, this is the most common one I see, your company had to hire a vice president of engineering because the company grew too much. First of all, if you're not the person who instigated that hire, you probably and very likely don't think like an executive CTO. So, for example, if you didn't actually point out to the CEO yourself that you need to start hiring a more operational vice president of engineering, or even directors of engineering, heads of engineering, to help you deliver at scale all of the products that your company is trying to create, it's likely that you're not an executive CTO. But what's worse is that if your company the CEO hired a vice president of engineering, often with very little input from you as the CTO, or they manage the vice president of engineering directly, even if they haven't told you, I hate to say it, the executive doesn't treat you or trust you as an executive CTO. Because if they did, you would be the boss of that VP of engineering. And the reason the CEO is managing directly that VP of engineering is because they want to make sure that this person delivers real value for the business and real business outcomes. And potentially right now, they don't think you do that. Another third and very very clear sign of an executive CTO is someone who proactively shapes the business vision and strategy. Business goals don't surprise you because you shaped them with the rest of the C-suite and you're making them happen. You made them happen. Every time a CTO says to me, I was blindsided by the CEO and the rest of the C-suite with this new vision or this new targets that we have to reach, or now I have to create this tech strategy that makes I don't even know where to begin. That is a sign of someone who is either not an executive CTO or they are not treated like an executive CTO. The other signs are, for example, you don't do much stakeholder engagement, and this is number 4. If you spend a significant amount of time working with the other C-suite executives, the COO, maybe the CPO if there is one, the CMO, the CSO, chief sales officer or chief commercial officer, with the board members, with external partners to shape the organization, then you are very, very likely an executive CTO. And number 5, when you're in board meetings or C-suite meetings, an executive CTO leads discussions and they have a commanding voice and they're a respected voice within that company with regards to what business strategy and what business vision should the company have considering where the technology is at. If you're an executive CTO, you're a proactive leader who looks at the marketplace, who understands the market you are in and where exactly in that market space your company is adding value. A lot of CTOs say to me, oh, my CEO is imposing this. Oh, management say this. That is a very, very clear sign that you, I'm afraid, are not an executive CTO. And I'm sure some of you will have seen this on various posts that I have shared on LinkedIn. And I'm sharing here with you today this this kind of little wheel of the signs that you have a staff mindset. Maybe you think like an engineer in the sense of just a cog in a massive engine in a company, but not actually as the driving force behind that, which is the executive CTO. Look at these 10 signs. Do you do these things? If you do any of these things, you are very unlikely to be an executive CTO. And this is actually now the internal side of an executive or not executive CTO, right? So the external signs As you can see, they're all to do with the network you have, the proactive business and market knowledge and approach. It's the financial responsibility and financial decisions for the business, is the co-creating the business future with the rest of the C-suite, and co-creating and telling almost the business what avenues the company should can take, considering where the technology can take them. That is an executive person. But the mindset that goes along with that, first I'm going to talk about, as you can see, if you value deep technical expertise and R&D above business results, you're very, very unlikely to be an executive CTO. You probably still think like an engineer. If you think you should hire people just because they're super duper experts, but you don't actually necessarily think about the return on investment for the business of hiring this person, and how exactly does this person fit within the company vision and strategy. Which leads me to my second point. If you don't have a clear vision for the technology and how this aligns with what the business is trying to achieve in that marketplace, you're very unlikely to be an executive CTO. And if you don't regularly present, discuss, or remind your engineering teams what that vision is, if you don't try to influence them and inspire them to want to have that mastery, because a lot of engineers, they want mastery in their jobs. They're engineers because they're brilliant at what they do. But if you just work in your office and you create software or hardware, whatever, all the way to deployment on your own without any input from other people, you're more likely a chief scientific officer, maybe sometimes even an architect, but definitely not an executive CTO. Executive CTO means business and technology are equally important, and actually more so, business is more important than technology, and technology serves the business, not the business has to serve the technology, which is when you just say, we have to do this because it's cool. It doesn't matter if it's cool. It doesn't matter if it's cutting edge, if there is no business case for it. And that feeds me to the next point about the fact that a CTO that doesn't have does not an executive, they struggle to make a business case for engineering spend. If you, for example, if you say to the company, I need more engineers. Well, why do you need more engineers? Where are they? What value are they going to add to the business? How does that fit in with what the company is trying to achieve? Why do you need them now? Why don't you need them in 5 years' time? Why didn't you need them 2 years ago? Being able to make a business case for why you're hiring more engineers is an absolutely basic and crucial part of being an executive CTO. But also, if you're a CTO of a company, but you have no engineering metrics, especially no engineering metrics that help you understand what value you are adding to the business, that help you project engineering as a value center rather than as a cost center. Again, I hate to say it, but you are unlikely to be an executive CTO. I'm going to pause here for a second just to check if there are any questions on my on this live session that I could be answering for you. Oh, there's no questions at this point, so no problem. We should carry on. And then the other part of this is that if you are a CTO and you say to me or to someone else or to your engineers, "Oh, management are asking us to do this," you are management. That shows me straight away, even you don't see yourself as an executive. How should everybody else? Why should the rest of the C-suite see you as an executive if even you don't see yourself as one of them? When you're an executive CTO, you don't create a divide between engineering and other departments. You your entire a core part of your job is actually to build bridges between engineering and other departments, to work in a matrixed way to bring the most value for the business. And it's your first focus is the business, not the technology. Your first team is the executive team. Your first team is the CEO and your CPO and the CMO and the COO, not your engineers. Your engineers are your department that you need to nurture and take care of and speak for them in the C suite sometimes and negotiate on their behalf to the C suite if necessary. However, you your team is not the engineers in real terms at this stage. If you are an executive CTO, you never expect people to just trust you without being able to communicate effectively why they should trust you. In fact, you never say trust me, because people actually already trust you because of how well you communicated the business value, the people value, the why the technology needs to be like this. You don't expect engineers and the board to just trust you just because you have the job title of CTO. You understand that you need to make a case for it and explain and bring them along with you on the journey as to why something needs to be done. Some CTOs as well don't see leading people and inspiring people as a core part of their job. They feel technology is their job as chief technology officer, and they prefer hacking rather than leading people. Now, the challenge is that no CTO is perfect, right? There are some CTOs who are really good at influencing and inspiring people. There are some CTOs who are really good at creating innovative technology and they look to the future and they're really good at that. And there are some CTOs that are also very good operationally. They can create systems and multiply the technology prototypes they create. They're able to design those at scale and make things happen on a large scale rather than just in a company of 100 to 100 people. You don't have to have all of these aspects. However, you do need to have the core aspects, which are you need to be able to understand the business and how technology is adding value to it. And if you're not as good at influencing people, then make sure that you hire a vice president of engineering and you work closely with them to get them to inspire the engineers to deliver the big vision that you create. If presenting and connecting to people is not your thing, hire someone that complements you so they can deliver that side of things. Another sign that someone is not an executive CTO is that they don't think about things that would make engineering more efficient, but also save money to the business. They don't zoom out. Non-executive thinking CTOs, they don't zoom out. They just often just zoom in. Or sometimes they zoom out so far, they're completely removed from the business. They just zoom out and focus on the technology itself and look at the technology as, oh, we have to create this thing because it's really exciting. But there's no reality check. But does this make any business sense? Would it work in our type of market? And as a CTO, you don't necessarily need to know those answers yourself, but you do need to speak to marketing and sales and the CEO and the other C suite members to really truly understand the market you guys are in and what value you bring to that market. And another sign, which I mentioned earlier as well, is you're not an executive CTO if you do not proactively comment on other presentations and proposals from the other departments. If you go to C-suite meetings and you just sit there waiting for the meeting to finish, or feel completely out of your depth, but you never ask any questions, you're not an executive CTO. Because as an executive CTO, you would ask questions. You would question things because probably other people have the same questions. They're just not voicing them. But an executive CTO challenges things. They don't just say things. They don't just say yes to everything and then begrudgingly go back to the engineers and go, oh, management also us do this. That's not what an executive CTO does, folks. And I'm going to share now the wheel of what a bit more about what an executive CTO looks like. And I if there are any questions or anything you'd like to me to answer, please feel free to ask. I'm more than happy to answer any questions you might have. So this is the wheel where you see um, the executive CTO wheel and what that looks like. And as you can tell, it's the opposite of what I said earlier in the staff mindset CTO. It's literally, if you were to put it as a mirror, it's essentially a mirror opposite of this. But a core part that I'm not sure I spelled out as much earlier is the fact that an executive takes accountability for engineering, adding business value. In fact, an executive takes accountability for people under them in their department, even though those people didn't perform well, and even though those because those people are under your employment, they're under your leadership. Their results are your results. So if they succeeded, you surely had a core kind of role that played in helping them succeed. But if they fail, you also had a massive role in that. I'm not saying that you should take um, credit for your engineers' successes. In fact, you should praise them and praise your teams for their successes. If you see yourself, and Professor Michael Smets from Oxford University, who very kindly invited me to guest lecture on that on their AI for Business program, he calls it an orchestrator. An executive is an orchestrator. And that's the thing. If you think about an orchestrator, orchestrates, but they are not necessarily the ones producing the music. They have violinists and piano players and all the rest of it, but they're not necessarily producing the music hands on. And the same with CTO. If you start writing code, you can write prototypes. A composer, maybe a conductor, might have written the music that they're playing. They can create the prototype, but it doesn't mean they actually run on every corner in the room to play every instrument to try to deliver that song at the end of the day. So now, at the end of this, I'd like to just mention something else rather briefly, which is the competence areas that I've seen CTOs often miss. And as you can see from this chart, there's 5 core areas. A lot of CTOs, the ones that are not executive, don't have a lot of business acumen. And back to the points about business case for engineering metrics, getting value from suppliers, negotiating properly with suppliers. Um, and there's often a leadership vacuum as companies grow because they haven't developed the skills as the business and engineering grew. And these lack of skills start to show massively as the company grows beyond 100 people, I would say. Another big area of development and improvement for CTOs is political acumen. Political acumen is extremely important as the company grows, and often CTOs have terrible skills in this area. Um, they they don't necessarily often read the room. They don't understand the dynamics in the board because often maybe they don't have an interest in other people. And that is a huge weakness for them because they get caught out and they often feel left out. And there are reasons why this happens. Because sometimes, for example, they'll give bad news without, um, they give bad news. They don't know how to give bad news without alarming staff or stakeholders. Those are kind of essential um, uh, uh, political skills and political acumen skills that are really needed as the company grows. Being able to introduce hierarchy and structure in a sensitive manner as the business grows is also extremely important. And obviously, strategic acumen is a core part as well. Without being able to strategize technology, it's going to be very hard to be an executive CTO, because you can't, as a part of the strategy, you need to allocate resources, but you can't allocate resources without having a clear approach, a clear strategy to achieving some business goals. Massive red flag for me every time a CTO says, I've been asked to produce a tech strategy. And I say, excellent, where's the business strategy? And they say, oh, we don't have one yet. But there's been no negotiation with the CEO to say, I can't produce a tech strategy without a business strategy. And I'm happy to help you create a business strategy first. And this is the signs that they don't have strategic acumen. Leadership and communication skills, I'm sure everybody's banged on about this till the cows come home, so I'm not going to talk too much about it. But essentially, dealing with ambiguity and negotiating internally and externally are absolutely crucial skills for CTOs. And again, they often struggle. And the last but not least, people and process. As the company grows, there's a need for structure and process to be able to not implode with the growth. A lot of CTOs engineering departments often implode because there is no infrastructure, there is no process, there is no operation strategic approach. There's no strategic approach to the operations of engineering, and therefore everything starts crumbling as the company grows, and they achieve less and less with more and more people on board. I've just seen a question from Mario Cordeiro Cabrera. Thank you, Adelina, for the most interesting discussion. When dealing with innovation, uncertainty in business increases, do you have any comments on how a CTO should address it? Mario, would you like to join me in the studio? I'll send you the link, because I think it's really. I'd love to understand a bit more what you mean by. Can you give me a bit of an example of what you mean by with when dealing with innovation, uncertainty in business increases? Can you have a little chat about that together in the studio? If you go to the link that I've just pasted to you, you can join me in the studio and we can have a little chat about it and explore a bit more the question that you have asked. I'm gonna wait for now for see if there's any other comments, or or also to see if Mario joins the studio, so we can discuss his question. But I'm gonna reread it in a minute just to make sure I understand it. So thank you, Adelina, for a most interesting discussion. When dealing with innovation, uncertainty in business increases. Do you have any comments on how a CTO should address it? Yes. Okay. Well, I'm going to start answering the question, and see how it goes on my own. Um, when dealing with uncertainty in business increases, so absolutely, when dealing with innovation, uncertainty in business increases, how should a CTO address it? Expectation management. This is one of the biggest issues that I've seen when you have innovation. At all times, you have to constantly remind your stakeholders that this is. Thank you, Mario. I'll look for. You have to remind your stakeholders that when you're producing innovation, there's constant iteration, there's constant opportunity for failure, i.e., learning, and framing all the failure as learning rather than anything else. So I just be aware, Mario. I don't think you will be able to join from a phone. I think you need a laptop or a desktop of some sort, by the way. Um, so this is one of the things I would say, that when when dealing with innovation, and obviously uncertainty in business does increase, then you do need to be able to manage expectations and empower the engineers as well at the same time, not to feel scared of failing. So you manage expectations with stakeholders, i.e., you can say, we envisage that we are going to be able to release a alpha or beta version of this or whatever, but I will update you if there's unforeseen things coming up, because obviously this is the first time we're doing it. Yes, Gavin says now that is key to that the only way to learn is to accept that we will fail. And exactly, if you are in a company where failure is seen as a disaster, to be honest, you can't really innovate. To be able to innovate, you have to feel safe to fail. You have to feel safe to make mistakes. And if you don't feel safe to do that, I'm afraid to say, I don't think you can innovate very much. And when there is uncertainty, keeping people up to date with developments, not trying to hide the fact that this doesn't work. That is absolutely crucial in order to be able to manage your stakeholders, but also your engineers. Anyway, Mario, I haven't seen you in the studio yet, and I was only planning to do this for half an hour. But anyway, I hope this live session was helpful. And if you would like me to run more topics, please don't hesitate to ask. I wish everybody a happy new year, and also lovely